Hello, Cole. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly right now.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Welcome here.
Thank
Let
you.
me just briefly introduce you. You are the CEO, Kåre Enkilde of Amniotics. It's a pleasure to have you, and you have approximately 10 minutes to introduce your company, and then we'll take some questions, and then that's it.
Certainly.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And you say with such a short time, I'll dive right straight into it. So if we start out with what Amniotics is, it's a quite young company, only 6 years old, here in Lund, Malmö, or Lund, just southern Sweden, working with a platform with mesenchymal stem cell therapies, where we really have, you could say, have captured the full process chain, have full capacity within that, can both produce our own products as well as do contract manufacturing for others. Recently listed on First North NASDAQ, and we have a pipeline, and I'll go more into that later on. So basically what we do as a company is that we manufacture, develop, produce innovative stem cell therapeutics targeting life-threatening diseases where we really see that there's a lack of efficacious treatments. That is based on amniotic fluid. Amniotic fluid is the fluid around the fetus during pregnancy. So it's the fluid that is around the fetus during pregnancy that kind of, you could say, support the fetus and ensures that it has that, you could say, kind of bouncing thing about it. And you could also think of this fluid as a reservoir from the child, because it will be slugging off its cells into this fluid during pregnancy. So there will be cells from the lungs, cells from the kidney, because it will be swallowing the fluid and peeing it out. It will be from the lungs, it will be from the skin, and it will even be from the brain through the nostrils. So really a lot of unique products in that fluid, and that is, you could say, where we start off with. So this is, you could say, how we view our product and how we see this as a differentiating product, because we have the capacity to select these cells from that fluid based on its tissue relevance or tissue specificity. So in that sense, it's kind of likes treat likes. So you have lung mesenchymal stem cells for treatment of lung tissue. And that is, I see, the very important, you could say, feature of these products, because you could say having that very young, because remember, it's coming from the neonate, from the child, from that very early baby on, will be able to reboot, rejuvenate the body's tissue in that particular organ. And as you can also see here in the picture to the right, these cells have a much faster expansion, you could say, hence reducing the cost of goods, because we can produce many of these cells within a short time. And also to understand here, this is scalable. One would normally think about, okay, one patient or one donation equals one patient, but it's not like that. This is fully scalable. One donation equals more than 6,000 treatments. So it's really scalable. The whole process is able to be removed, you could say, to other locations, so we can set this setup in the US or Japan or where it may be. We focus on these four different areas. We see them as being very, you would say, needing of treatments, and we really, as mentioned, really see that we have a product that can target these specific areas. Also, to understand, this stem cell therapy business is right now quite nascent, but it's really looking and forecasted to grow very, very rapidly. So to reach $3.1 billion just within 5 years' time. So very quickly, and that is of course due to the fact that we see quite a number of clinical trials in this field that is equal to, you could say, more being approved on the market in a short time from now. As so many other, you could say, companies in this field, biotech in general, we have focused on the orphan or the rare indication. That is really where we see that there's a need of good treatment. It's also an area where we can see a potential of quickly get regulatory guidance, because that is kind of the way authorities work within this field, and hence you could say quicker come to market in that field. Just a small slide, a single slide to kind of look at the disease areas, the market that we're targeting. If we look at, you could say we have these four different cell types for different indications within these 4 different indications. And all of these are growing within the next few years. Much of this is due to a population that's growing older. If we look at the CNS indication, that is of course due to the fact that we have Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, so forth. If we look at kidney, we have acute kidney diseases and chronic kidney diseases. That is mostly driven by type 2 diabetes, cisplatin treatment for cancers, and so forth. So there's a really, you could say, growing need for treatments in these areas due to the fact that we're getting older and really need good treatments for these. Just shortly going into this, since we're working with a cell product, you could say each of these products has the capacity to go into many different disease areas within this tissue. So they are able to do both reducing inflammation, removing the scarring tissue or the fibrosis area, and start creating new vessels to that, so being angiogenetic. So really, you could say our ability here is very much, you could say, to create a full pipeline where we, with each of these products, have the capacity and ability to target various different indications within this. So if we look at our pipeline right now and how we view it, as you can say, we start out with going into respiratory and lung indication. From there, we diversify. We start out with the ARDS and COVID-19, put a little more emphasis into that later on. Then we start going into idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, then lung transplantation. Then we diversify by bringing in the next pipeline product and kind of do the same exercise. Really an ability to, you could say, piggybacking on our whole capabilities. And then if we step to the next one, I think this is very unique for biotech companies like ours. We have a device, so in that sense, we are a medtech company. We have a device, patented CE marked, able to collect amniotic fluid from planned C-sections. So this is a fully ethically and safe procedure without any risk. We've done that numerous times. Of course, not ourselves. We deliver the device to the hospitals. They collect the fluid to us. Then we bring it to our facility where we filter, expand, and select the cells all the way to fill and finish and ready for clinical trials or co-developments, or even bringing in our own preclinical development. And you could say, in that sense, you can kind of also, when you look at this slide, understand that we can very quickly produce the different products we have. All of our pipelines can go in this development field, and we can, you could say, process development wise, it's very easy to skip from one pipeline product to the next pipeline product and so forth. So development wise, it's very speedy when we've started out with the first product. So you could say, kind of again, pushing that we control the full value chain. We do not produce the amniotic fluid. We do not collect it ourselves. We have the device to collect it, but all the way from there to fill and finish. That is what we do and can work with. And from there, you can say we can do the preclinical studies, we can do the clinical studies, and so forth. Really an opportunity to quickly out licensing and co-development with peers in the field. A little on our GMP facility, because I think that's part of our strength. We have 6 Class B rooms, enabling us to have several pipelines going at the same time. We have QC labs to release our products. We have, you could say, also storage capacity in our own facility. We have manufacturing rights for our first-line product within respiratory indication, and we have the ability as secondary business to produce products for other companies as a manufacturer. Then you can say a little on the clinical indication. We start off with the first half next year going for COVID-19, acute respiratory distress syndrome. We are not targeting the viral part. We're targeting the severe patients, those that are in the intensive care, really needing treatments that have this cytokine storm ongoing in the body that really needs reduction of the inflammation, removing some of the scarring tissue that we know can be part of that, and start rejuvenating those bodies. So really have, you could say, what's called an adaptive trial design, ability to go in, do dose escalation on these patients, expand on the dose we find is right and then quickly do a rollover into a phase 2b study. So really enabling us to very quickly move forward. And we'll of course collect more than safety and tolerability in a study like that. We'll look at fibrosis markers, inflammatory markers, also fatigue. Fatigue is what you often describe as post-COVID issue, where you have a lack of energy. Really, you could say one of the big discussions when it comes to COVID and post-COVID. Also, you could say to understand how we work with patent-wise, IP-wise, we really, you could say, protect our end-to-end process with creating a patent minefield across the way we work. And so we really have a strong focus on having a strong patent capacity, and also ensuring that we have the correct wording both for US and EU and so forth, because there's different wordings across the globe. So with that, I'll just quickly summarize and saying we really are a fast-growing company, and we're also targeting what appears to be a very high potential market, looking to grow very, very rapidly. We have the opportunity to out-license to pharma companies at different stages of development. We control the full manufacturing process value chain with tissue-relevant neonatal mesenchymal stem cells tailored for these different disease indications. And you could say, again, targeting attractive specialty disease markets. I think with that,
perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Can we go back? So can we go back to the slide on the value chain? Because I think one of the key things that differentiates you is that actually you could start in the early stages of this. You actually have capabilities that is differentiating you from sort of your competition, I would argue. How come you ended up with that?
Well, you could say, well, when we look at, you could say, first off, the competitors can of course come from small molecules and antibodies. And in that phase, you often, you could say, look at a very different type of product, and you start doing, looking at lead products and lead optimization and so forth. We kind of started out with a different way. We started out working with a fluid that no one else works with. Then we built a full GMP facility, meaning that the product we select as lead product, you could say, that's already produced. That is the product that goes into preclinical studies. And that means that we very quickly can move directly into clinical studies because we're already working with that. So really fully integrated biotech companies compared with what you normally see.
So in reality, you could found another company, is that correct? And say, look, this is a medtech company and we're doing all these kinds of things for other clients basically. And that's what you refer to as the secondary business opportunity. Exactly.
You could say, if we look at it, we have several fallback positions. As a biotech, I think that's also quite unique. Normally, when you talk about biotech, you have a single asset. So you really have one trick pony in many essences. So we have fallback positions both in each of our products. We have fallback positions onto manufacturing. We have fallback positions on the device itself because no one else have a device to collect this fluid. And there is interest across the globe for having a device like that can collect this fluid because all of them can also see an opportunity in that.
Okay. Do you have any patents here that is relevant?
You could say we work, of course, with patents. We have patents on the device and so forth, all around that. We are working with patents and IP across the rest. You could say from a patent perspective, what you really don't want to end out in having to start out paying the high cost on patents too early. So what we do is we file and then we keep it in the IPS.
Okay.
So you could say we don't right away have to spend a lot of money on it, but we still make sure that we have that stick in the ground and that right, you could say, time of filing. So no one
understood. And on the clinical side, you're focused on 4 different areas. And could you perhaps just give us a bit of insight into why is it so broad? I know maybe it's a wrong question, but you know, it is many indications that you want to serve at the same time. Is that a fair comment?
I would say it's a fair comment. I also think that that's differentiating us from others. As mentioned before, we're certainly not a one-trick pony. We have these 4 different fields. We can potentially even grow that down the road. Right now, we're focusing on these 4. Also because you could say this is where we really see there will be a lot of these cells in that fluid. Coming back to the neonate, the child inside the womb, you would say it will be swallowing the fluid, so it will be coming into the renal tract and being peed out. So a lot of it is actually pee in amniotic fluid. So there we have the renal cells, the kidney cells. Also, the lungs will be completely full of amniotic fluid. And if you look surface-wise, actually the lungs is one of the biggest surfaces we have. So there we have a lot of those cells. So from that start, we start out looking at where do we see a lot of these cells in the fluid.
And then perhaps a very difficult question, Cole, but when we get to December 2022, what will you be satisfied with? What should we have seen that make you happy?
I would say if we look at December 2022, I think I would very much like a clinical study, very close to being fully final. I would very much like us to have a licensing agreement going. I would very much like us also to have some contract manufacturing for others. These are high-flying things, but I actually think we can potentially deliver on all. Of course, I really don't. I don't want to promise anything.
No.
We have the potential. I think that's important to stress here. We have the potential to deliver on all of these.
Yeah. And just, you are a small organization, I believe 13 people, and you said you were hiring. What kind of people are you hiring?
You could say we're constantly hiring. Right now, we're actually 18 per year.
Okay.
Now. Yeah, not a problem. We are growing quite a lot. Of course, we have a lot of emphasis on building capacity within production.
Sure.
Because in this field, the production aspect really is a lot and requires highly qualified person and people. But also, of course, on the research part, being able to look at these cells, work with these cells, ensuring the different development steps in these, but also clinically wise, we're also growing that part of the business. We have a new director of clinical and regulatory for IS starting in January to support that part. We also work with clinical, you could say, experts and work with that. So we're really growing across, and you could say, thinking of it that we have this fully integrated company, so we need actually to grow quite broadly in that sense.
Final question, Cole. The shareholder base you have right now, could you just briefly describe it, and perhaps also go into your kind of holding, if you hold any shares, just to give people an idea what we're talking about. Who are you co-investing with? I think that's interesting.
You could say I'm certainly co-investing and have been for quite a while. I believe my share numbers is listed on our homepage, so I can't recall right now exactly how many I have. But I really, you could say, really feel that this is a good opportunity to invest. When we look at our investor base, of course, we have started diversifying, or you could say increasing the number of investors. But we also have some of our three big investors very close by. Two of them are on the board. Each of them sits with around 12% of the shares. And all of them are very much, you could say, focused on supporting the company moving forward, and have been also in the past. One of them is you would say, from a Danish perspective, not that well known. From a Swedish perspective, very well known. Christopher Reus, well-known entrepreneurs in southern Sweden, started a company called Cellavision, which has been quite successful, and generally also is part of EQL Pharma in Lund, also a very successful company. So I would say we really have strong capabilities, both on shareholder base and also from management and board.
Perfect. Cole, thank you very much for joining. Thank you for a very interesting presentation, and see you later. Have a nice day.
Thank you too.
Thank you.